Bill, good morning. How are you doing on this lovely morning here in November?
Well, it's Friday, Gary, and if it's Friday, there's something special about it called the weekend is coming.
Does that mean that you have a few touch games to judge this weekend?
No. We're having a lot of rugby on the weekend. The All
Mhm.
Blacks are playing, and we have several games on what they call the Mitre 10 competition.
Right.
So there's about 7 games of rugby for me to watch Friday,
Right.
Saturday, Sunday.
Right. So watching but not judging today.
No, just feet up and a beer and a few laughs.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Bill, I want to start our conversation today getting into my questions with the first question is going to be kind of semi-introduction of who you are, but also the question of the beginning. So you're a keynote speaker, you are a leadership and a power coach. You, over the last number of years, I'm not going to say how many, you have spoken in 57 countries, and you have had a really successful career doing what you do. And I'm really curious to understand, how did it all start? Where did it start? The,
I think if I've got to try and pinpoint this, I'm not going to be exact, but when I was about 10, I guess, I started to really look around me and think, why are there so many things being done
Mhm.
that are not being done in a way that I think is either fair or inclusive? Of course, it was a more conservative time in those
Yeah,
days, but you had to do as you were told, and you weren't allowed to vary from anywhere. And although I didn't know the word, I was essentially, I think, born a maverick, because I would always look around to say, is that the way that should be done?
mm,
Is there a better way of doing it?
yeah,
Then giving yourself a title, because there was such a word called maverick. And when I first looked it up, and I wouldn't have done that till I was in my 20s, sort of thing, it was all very ugly. It's about, if you're a maverick, you're trying to be different and you're an outlier and you don't belong. And then I began to realize, to my horror, that the world is always going to be same old, no change, no
mm,
change.
mm,
Within people, sure,
yeah,
all the things around us, we've gone from riding horses to driving in cars.
yeah,
But the inner spirit of the human being is like, don't change things, please. But if
mm,
you're going to do that, and that's where we get NIMBY, but not in my backyard.
right, yeah,
And please don't include me.
yeah, yeah. So it started around 10 years old, seeing, looking around and becoming curious. And has that led you into the world of public speaking somehow? Is that the way the path has turned?
Well, it didn't lead me into public speaking. I think it wasn't my mother, but it was somebody close to the family. And I went into a prisoner of war camp when I was only 3 months old. So we had close family
Hmm.
also locked up together. So two grandmothers, aunties, niece, cousins.
Yeah.
Uh, and at one stage, it was my grandmother, and she said, don't you worry when they say you talk too much. You just carry on doing it, sort of
Mm.
thing. And I'm thinking, I talk too much? What does that mean? I thought we're supposed to, you see. So I guess I've just been a natural talker, speaker, chatter.
Yeah, yeah. And has that, by being able to speak, to chat, has that opened doors for you, or has that, you think, made things more difficult, because you turned into, over the years, you turned from just speaking into the leadership path as well, haven't you?
Yes. Well, to answer your question, absolutely. If you can speak well, and I
Mm.
don't mean just talk, don't just make mouth noises, but try to make sure that when you are speaking, you're doing something useful. For
Yeah.
example, you have the whole range from just sitting down and helping people with ideas, or you speak to an audience, or you try to change people's minds, or you try to sell something, or whatever. If you can't do that well, you will always struggle. And of course, I also noticed as I was growing up that there simply were not enough good leaders. And why was that? I learned eventually that a lot of people don't want to take up leadership roles because they believe that they won't be able to cope with people who either disagree with them. And with today's technology and social media, even more people have said, we're not going to take up leadership roles when all the trolls of the world can do bad stuff to me when I'm just trying my best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think going into leadership and developing yourself in the way that you did, has that changed your perspective on many things? Has that broadened your horizon, helped you see things in a different way?
Well, that's a good question, because a lot of it was imposed upon me quite early. I was only 13 when I was chosen to be the troop leader, or the boy troop leader of a scout troop.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same year, I was chosen to be the captain of my high school rugby team.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you're a leader.
Yeah.
And then somehow or other, and I can't put my finger on it, I must have had the kind of voice or the empathy, certainly the research involved to get things done properly, to get other roles. So not long after I left home, I was called up for military service.
Yeah.
And I didn't choose to be, I just chose to do my 3-year service, and that's it. And then next minute, I'm asked to come into an officer training program. They just said, well, they didn't ask. They said, you're going into an officer training program. I'm going, must be the military. And then I graduated from that. Next minute, I'm an officer. And I'm thinking, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But because you get used to who you are and what you do, it's not a surprise until you try to make it one. So you say, well, I'm confident and blah, blah, blah. And then the next minute, I find myself at the world headquarters of a large international leadership organization, which then had over 500,000 members in more than 100 countries. Wow. And I was picked out. I kid you not, I looked at some of the candidates after I was chosen. And this was based in Miami, Florida, where I was on a 3-year assignment, but it went out to 8 years. And I must have been doing a reasonable number of things right, because after 8 years, they said, could you please stay for 2 more, sort of thing.
Right.
But, you know, we had just got married before we went to Florida. And after a while, you know, my wife said, hey, I think we've had a great time, but I'm a little homesick for New Zealand. Let's go back. And of course, for me, family was always number one. So home we came.
Yeah.
But the experience was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So being a leader at such a high level and looking at things internationally, were there some things that you looked at and thought, this can be done differently, this can be done, this needs to change, which maybe has also helped you with how you then later on tagged yourself as being the Maverick, as the guy who does it differently?
Constantly. And I mean, I don't wake up every morning saying, okay, how can we change the bus service so that we can have a cup of tea at the back and play a bit of cricket in the aisle, sort of thing. But I'll tell you this, you can't just say to people, and that's one of my mantras, do it differently. Together with keep it simple.
Yeah.
Now, I then developed, as part of my repertoire, if you like, to create what I call 3 Law, which nobody in the world teaches, and created a number of 3-worders, which I call 3Bs. It's quite a wide program, but I don't do it differently unless it makes it better.
Right.
So if somebody said to me, hey, Bill, could you make my restaurant look different, scan over it and see what we can do differently. If I thought honestly that what's happening there is already marvelous, then I would say, look, I don't want to take your money just to say, gee, I thought purple curtains were better than the yellow ones.
Yeah.
And that'll be 100,000, please, because I'm a maverick, you know.
Yeah.
So the consequence of that is that it's now just and I think I was born like that. It's called, why are we doing it like this?
Yeah.
And even in my own religion, I became an independent member of my religion because I said, look, I can't be honest with myself and ourselves if we just take everything that we hear for granted.
Yeah.
Because it would be the same if I joined a political party, which I never have, because I don't believe in partisan politics, because that's the dumbest form of democracy ever. Because your first job is to hate the other party, and therefore you kill the program, don't
Right.
you?
Yeah.
And so therefore, I've always been an independent, let's say a centrist. I like to be neutral, but we can't be totally neutral because that's not possible. You know, even if we say we're neutral, we slightly side with something.
Yeah.
And quite often, as human beings, we side with the underdog, as we call it. So if a little guy is being pushed around by a big guy, but it was the little guy who was cheeky and rude and upset this quietly taller person who was nice, who said, if you do that again, I'll smack you. You go, hey, you pick on that little guy. And the little guy walks off going, that was cool.
Yeah.
I win again.
Yeah. Yeah. So with your travels, with going around, with meeting a lot of people, were there some people that you met over the years that were unique people, special people, people who after meeting them have shaped the way that you think or changed the way that you think, or people that were just larger than life that you thought, wow, I'm so lucky to have met this person?
Totally. In fact, as you asked that question, it's a good way of asking it, because I think a lot of people sort of say something like, well, I met such and such and so, and then they stop there when they could add, after that meeting, I'm thinking, wow, or it changed my thinking on these things.
Yeah.
For example, the first person to step on top of Mount Everest was our own New Zealander, Sir Edmund Hillary.
Yeah.
And of course, the chance of you having a chat privately with Sir Edmund Hillary, unless you lived near his home, was not that great. But I had the chance for about 5 or 6 minutes to just chat with him. And I said, I know you've been asked this a million times, but what were you thinking as you not so much got to the top? It was like, now that we've done it, how do we get home safely? Because as a maverick, everyone kept saying, so to get to the top, the struggle, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And then as a maverick, just naturally for me, I wanted to know what it was like to go back down. And when I asked other people, they said, I don't think I'd ever thought of asking that question. So for me, that was natural and was wonderful.
Yeah.
The role that I played at this leadership world headquarters meant that I, for example, met the Emperor and Empress of Japan and had a couple of minutes that I could speak with them. Who's ever going to think that they could speak to an emperor and an empress?
Yeah.
Nobody will believe this except the people who were there, that I was the accidental bodyguard to a king. I didn't choose it, but I was doing maverick things, which resulted in me standing with his chief bodyguard right behind the king, because I said that we were inclusive in this organization. And I had a seat arranged for him, but he said, no, I've got to stand behind the king. And I said, well, I was in the military in my country, and to make it doubly good, I'll stand here beside you.
Yeah.
And he was so surprised, he didn't say anything. So there we were. and you met, because of these big conferences, you met presidents, prime ministers, but you also had the chance of meeting celebrities. I met Gary Cooper, who was the Best Actor award winner at the Oscars when I was only 10.
Right.
Which I think was the time about when I was starting to think about, hey, I can do things differently. And this man, why? Because Gary Cooper was where we lived in Samoa in the Pacific at that time.
Yeah.
And instead of going to the Oscars to get his second award, he asked his good friend John Wayne, and my American friends will remember John Wayne as one of the great ones, and said, "Would you please pick up my trophy, because I'm going down to Samoa and just making a casual movie," and it was called Return to Paradise.
Mm.
And because the Samoan girl, who was the lead local actress, had a brother, and he and I used to play a lot together. So she said to her brother, "Would you like to come and meet Gary Cooper?" And he said, "Yes, as long as my friend Bill comes."
Wow.
And I was called Willie then, which of course has a new meaning now, so we can't use that anymore. But thank you, Mr. Connolly. And, and Scotland, which I love. And so you meet these people, but you try very hard not to be overawed, because they're just good people having done good things.
Yeah.
Most of my people that I've loved to meet, I also had the great honor of having a private interview for 15 minutes with Mother Teresa.
Oh, wow.
Who became Saint Teresa, and being a good independent Catholic boy, I was told when I was growing up, you didn't meet saints of the Catholic Church because they had to be dead first.
Right.
But everyone already knew she was a saint because of what she had achieved. She was very petite, and she grasped my hands almost like we were old friends that were meeting up. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
And the hair stood up on the back of my neck. And you knew you were in the company of somebody a bit special, not the rah-rah type, just the quiet. I will be working with very, very sick people all my life and hope like heck I don't catch the virus.
Yeah.
And so all those people I met, I took a little something which said, okay, was there something I could learn? Just automatically. I didn't go there and say, what can I learn now that I'm going to meet them or something?
Yeah.
And I found some of them were very modest, very quietly spoken, but boy, did they achieve. And they're everywhere around us, except not a lot of them run around saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. And if they don't get 35 likes before breakfast, they have to go see their psychiatrist.
Yeah. 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 It's really interesting with the last comment, because as we're talking, I'm thinking you really lived through a few generations, the boomers, the X's, the Y's, the whatever generations we have right now. Do you really think that there's a difference between generations, or really people really are just people, with the exception of technology changing?
No, I think that the newer generations have been overwhelmed in a way that no generations before them could be overwhelmed. Because post World War II, you know, that's where the word boomers came from a baby boom. It was so unoriginal.
Yeah.
And the whole generational thing was a marketing exercise, which is essentially rubbish.
Yeah.
And anyone who believes what they say about their generation really do need a psychiatrist, because you can be anything. Because I'm sure you and I have met what they call old souls in young people.
Yeah.
That's a silly comment, but you know what they mean, don't you?
Yeah.
So the whole deal there was that the kids of today just get overwhelmed. You know, I'm now 3 and I should have my own cell phone. And they don't think that for themselves. It's like their 5-year-old brother has one, their 7-year-old sister, their 9-year-old twins, and they go, so where's mine? Also, people just don't seem to have the capability of turning stuff off. You know, I mean, once upon a time when you went for a run, you went for a run. Now they've got things packed to the arm here to show what their heart is doing. I just want to know if it's still beating. That's about enough for me, you know.
Yeah.
And the whole deal behind that is it's people of today are allowing themselves to be overwhelmed. And unless they can cure that, they're going to be taken along and they will not have any life of their own.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the things I also say is one of my 3Bs is think for yourself. Today, increasingly, the new generations are thinking what they are told to be thinking. And now that almost every second human being is some sort of superstar on social media, which means you have 4,000 mixed messages a day, you make the wrong choice and you're going to go in the wrong direction, and you're not clever enough to make that not happen.
It's a very wise observation, because as you were saying this, I was thinking, really, in many ways, people going out for a run is to clear their mind and to not worry. But if we go for a run to clear our mind, and we're so connected to so many things, we don't really clear our mind. We're actually still are connected. So it makes.
But even if they go for a walk, the minute you put those silly nodes in your ears, and now we've got these two little pieces of plastic sticking out, which means that it looks like you should have cleaned your ears.
That I have. Bill, do you still teach and train people? Do you still coach, or are you now more just enjoy my life and judge?
No. I will never stop doing what I believe I could be doing and should be doing until about a fortnight after my burial. Why? Because I have just created a very modern program, which I simply call Leader Speak, the alternative horizon, which means if you sign up with me and you know much of the content of that, when people sign up with me, they're not going to have one of those well-known, well-worn, it's been around forever coaching courses on leadership. Because to be fair, the core elements of good leadership never change. It's how you have it expressed. I mean, for example, one of the power 3Bs that go with that is that attitude is everything.
Right.
So if you've got a bossy boss, they're never going to be a leader. They're just going to be a bossy boss, and people are going to dislike them, and they're going to leave and go to other places. And the bossy boss is an idiot because he doesn't know he's a bossy boss, which means he can never be a leader, because a leader, a genuine leader, can also lead themselves. And these are elements in this course. And as I say, I just simply called it Leader Speak, because we want leaders. But if you can't speak, you can't present, you can't connect. You can't motivate. Inspire. And yet you can, but if you can have some ways of improving that methodology of connecting, then go to a course that gives you that. But most courses you'll find, and all the big ones and the big expensive ones, it's called, come and do the course with us. And now you have access to 4 billion videos and 300,000 podcasts. I don't have the time for that garbage. Still, the best courses are one with one. So that I can spend, and I don't do more than 12 sessions. They're a couple of hours each. And at that time, they belong to a group forever, where they can come back to me, and it's not like, oh, no, you have to pay some more. No, you've graduated with me, and we collectively build up a group of like-minded people who become their own team then. And continue to add to the betterment of that very group.
So if people would like to get in touch with you, get more information, have a chat, what is the best way to get hold of you?
Well, let me tell you that when I was, of course, growing up in those conservative times, I would have been about 10 or 11. And we kids were running around mucking about. And I thought, we're not doing anything useful here. So I said, either we should do this or this. And then there was more discussion. And then I said, look, let's just do it, damn it. And one of the kids there said, oh, you swore. Boy, if your mother had heard you, or something like that. I'm going, what? So I decided that moment of let's do it, damn it, would become one of my favorite words. So my Gmail address is very simple. It's just doitdammit @gmail.com. And do it, damn it, is not spelled DOIT because I'm a Maverick. So it's DUIT, same word, DAMMIT. So it's do it, damn it. And one day somebody said to me, you even want to try and change a simple couple of words like do it and put a U in. Why did you do that? And I said, you know why? Because if you look at the word do it, which is DUIT, I said, because we've always known that it takes you and I to do it better. And at that point, that person had to have a lie down and we had to call an ambulance. But you know what I mean? So I don't do things differently just for the sake of it. It has to make things better, or more interesting, or you can get results that you thought that you probably couldn't.
Bill, thank you so much for your stories today. Thank you for your insight and different perspective. I really appreciate the knowledge that you shared, and I really appreciate your time. Again, thank you. And I am looking forward to having another chat with you in the near future again.
Thanks, mate.
Talk soon.
Till soon.